Haunted boy stumbles into Sinister Cornfield. 5 terrifying sounds exposed by an unspeakable force. Jason Jordan's heart raced as he fled the clutches of belligerent laughter echoing in the hallways of Eastview Middle School. His classmates' mocking voices trailed him, sharp as a knife, slicing through the fragile layers of his confidence. With every snapshot of scornful faces, he felt smaller, invisible beneath the oppressive weight of indifference from his own family. His home, a brick fortress of routine and silence, offered no solace. So he found refuge in the vast cornfields behind his house, a maze pulsating with secrets hidden beneath swaying green stalks. The night was thick with foreboding when Jason dared to venture deeper than ever before, craving escape. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows that danced among the rows of corn. He gripped a stalk, trembling, as unfamiliar sounds embraced him. Mournful cries hung in the air like a chilling spectre. Sinister whispers trickled through the fields, growing into guttural growls that rumbled through the ground like distant thunder. Adrenaline surged. Was his mind conjuring these images, fueled by local legends of the haunted fields, or was something more malignant stirring just beneath the surface? With footsteps tentative and breaths shallow, he pressed further into the suffocating dark, the corn closing in around him. A trembling leaf brushed against his cheek, a chill skittering down his spine. Not a mere wind. It felt alive, watching him. The unsettling aura thickened, and he felt an unseen force tighten its grip, as if it could smell his fear, his deepest secrets laid bare. Maybe it was the stories his parents dismissed as nonsense, the tales the old folks whispered about the cornfields swallowing innocent children. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each rustle escalated his dread, echoing with the voices of past regrets, each sound a pulsing reminder of the darkness he'd only glimpsed too late. He remembered the way his dad, ever the cop, had spoken in hushed tones when Jason mentioned the stories, eyes darting, expressions clouded with unresolved guilt, and their friendly neighbor, Mr. Finch, with his crooked smile, always shared his harvest too readily. Jason's heart sank. Whispers of betrayal seeped into his mind, a noxious fog wrapping around him as fear clawed at his throat. Just as Jason felt the ground shift beneath him, heat flooding through his body, he caught sight of a figure emerging from the shadows, tall, gaunt, and enveloped in darkness. Panic surged inside him. The whispers crescendoed into an overwhelming roar that drowned out reason. He had to run. He spun, heart racing, every muscle screaming for freedom. But the path was shifting, blurring into uncertainty. The unseen force tightened around him, laughing with the chilling, sinuous grip of despair. Jason stood frozen between the echoing shadows and the sinister pull of the corn. Was this the end? Was he destined to be another forgotten tale, swallowed by the dark heart of the fields? As dread gripped him tighter, he understood the ominous truth that not all legends fade, and he was on the verge of awakening a darkness that had been waiting for him. Gripped by terror, Jason turned back, fear blasting through him like a freight train. The figure loomed, its outline becoming clearer against the dim light filtering through the corn. Blacker than the night around, it felt like it shrank the air, pulling the breath from Jason's lungs. He stumbled backward, desperate to escape, but the corn stalks twisted like iron bars, blocking his way as if the field itself was alive. His mind raced. What was this ghastly silhouette? Was it real or just a figment of the stories that haunted him? The whispers morphed into agonizing screams, distant yet unbearably close, an echo of long-buried secrets clawing their way to the surface. Jason's legs finally found a way to move, pushed by instinct more than rational thought. He dove down a narrow path between the corn, weaving frantically, heart-pounding, still echoing within the thick, greenhouse-like walls of the crop. Each snap of a dried leaf beneath his feet felt like a death knell, sounding betrayal from the very earth he stood upon. Behind him, the sound of shuffling, scraping footsteps grew louder, moving swiftly, as if a predator had picked up his scent. "Help!" he gasped, but the sound crumbled before it reached the air, swallowed by the oppressive night. Panic seized him anew. This was where his solitude thrived. Yet now the cornfield was a prison, every stalk an unforgiving gatekeeper. He could almost feel their eyes, the ghostly children lost to the field, watching and waiting for someone unworthy to step into their nightmare. Frantic, Jason pushed on, the blankets of shadow closing in. He remembered stories of those who vanished within these very fields, tales that echoed through his childhood. Were they warning whispers or invitations? He shuddered, struggling to dismiss the thought. Suddenly, the ground beneath him buckled, his foot slipping into a hidden trench, and he fell. The earth was cold, damp, alive, grasping at him like fingers of the forgotten. Gasping, he scrambled to his knees and his palms sank deeply into the mud, sucking him in. For a moment he fought against the pull, instinctively reaching for grasping tendrils of cornstalks. But panic makes you weak. And then, without warning, silence. The whispers had faded. The laughter had died. Jason peered into the darkness, his heart racing against the unnatural stillness. Was he alone? He paused, catching his breath, squinting into the blackness for any sign of movement. Just as he thought it might be safe, he heard it, a soft, wheezing breath right beside him. Cold dread pooled in the pit of his stomach. Something was there, brushing against his side, hot and rancid. Jason turned, his eyes wide in horror. A face emerged, gaunt and pale, with hollow eyes staring deep into his soul. It grinned, a smile too wide, lips cracked and dripping. "You shouldn't be here," it rasped, the voice a low, sinister echo that sent ice racing through Jason's veins. He blinked, immobilized by fear. The thing leaned closer. "You are the one they've waited for, the one who could finally break the silence." A rush of energy filled Jason, igniting his fight or flight response. He bolted, the creature's laughter mingling with the relentless whispers flaring back to life. The cornfield twisted around him, every shadow a potential threat, a haunting reminder that he was not alone. He barreled deeper, feeling the darkness pulse in rhythm with his pounding heart. As he finally stumbled into a clearing, the moonlight spilled onto a small patch of ground, illuminating a forgotten wooden sign, "Leave before dark, danger lurks." But as his eyes darted back toward the maze behind him, a chilling realization struck. The laughter was all around him. He had unwittingly crossed into the heart of their realm. What had he awakened as he traipsed into their territory? The laughter crescendoed, mocking his panic as the shadows stretched grotesquely. He had to figure out a way out. This was about to become a nightmare he might never escape. Was there a way to silence the whispers, or was he fated to join them? Jason stumbled through the clearing, moonscape illuminating the soil beneath him, but there was no comfort in the light. The laughter morphed into soft weeping, a sound tugging at the deepest parts of his mind. The noise wrapped around him like a shroud, both gripping and grotesque. He shifted his gaze, desperate for safety. There had to be a way out, an escape from this hellish trap. He spotted a narrow trail, partially obscured by thick weeds, promising freedom nestled within a menacing crevice. Heart thundering, he dashed towards it. Each step felt heavier, as if the cornfield itself were trying to pull him back, an anchor to despair, to evil. As he plunged deeper into the path, the atmosphere throbbed with an unsettling energy. The murmurs of the field intensified, muddled voices mingling into a chant, reverberating around him. "You are the one," they echoed, a mantra that pierced through the haze of horror. He reached the end of the trail, emerging into another clearing, this one wider, more open. The moonlight shimmered unnaturally, casting long shadows that warped and twisted on the ground. In the center stood an old wooden altar, its surface splattered dark with age and something far more sinister. There were crude carvings etched into the wood, faces he recognized from nightmares, their eyes sorrowful, pleading. Jason froze, a cold feeling creeping up from his toes as every ounce of instinct screamed to turn and flee. Suddenly the wind picked up, carrying with it a thin wail, chilling to the bone. It was a sound born from pain, a cry that wrapped itself around his heart. Had those lost to the field found hope in his presence, or were they the ones binding him to this cursed place? For a moment the world stilled. The shadows danced more erratically, bending and bowing, a choreography of despair. And with a jolt he realized the figures he'd dismissed as dark myths were here, in their torment, undulating as if they were forced to witness what he might do next. They were hangers-on, echoing his thoughts, waiting for him to act. He felt drawn to the altar, eyes glazing over. Perhaps the whispers had the answer, some way to silence the screams. But first he had to make a choice, one that could plunge him deeper into the abyss. "Jason, you could save us," the breathless voices implored, merging into one. "Help us be free." He hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing on him like a crushing vise. To help them would mean plunging into every horror he had ever been told. To reject them would render their screams into the void, a fate just as unbearable. Jason stepped forward, closer to the altar. Each breath was a battle, every heartbeat a violent reminder of his own fragility. He reached out, fingers brushing against the rough wood, feeling the pulse of desperation coursing through it. In that moment of contact, visions struck him, memories of the lost children and the countless souls trapped by the corn's eternal thirst for fear. Would this be his fate? "No!" he screamed, withdrawing his hand. The piece of moonlight shattered, replaced with a chaos of howling winds and thrashing shadows. The laughter surged back, louder, manic, bearing down on him like a weight that threatened to crush his very spirit. Suddenly he turned. He had to run. But as he spun around to flee, the shadows lunged. They arched toward him, seeking to envelop him in their embrace. As he sprinted back towards the path, he could hear their voices growing frenzied, desperate. "Join us, Jason," they cried. "Your silence is all we need." The ground shook beneath him. The cornfields were alive, writhing as if awakening from a long slumber. Eyes appeared in the darkening corn, and he knew that the battle wasn't just for his escape. It was a race against time, against the hunger of the field that had waited for him to take a side. Could he break free from the clutches of fate, or would he join the chorus of whispers bound to the curse of the corn? With every ounce of his strength, Jason pushed onward into the dark, the laughter clawing at him like a pack of wolves hungry for flesh, ready to drag him into the depths of despair. And just when he thought he could escape, he stumbled over something. The ground erupted beneath him, and he fell into a hidden pit, darkness swallowing him whole. Was this the sanctuary he had hoped for, or the ultimate trap to seal his doom? The darkness engulfed Jason, smothering him in its suffocating grip. He gasped, desperate for air, but the thick, damp soil filled his mouth and stung his throat. Panic surged through him as he twisted and turned, trying to find some trace of light, of escape. Above him, the raucous laughter faded, replaced by a low rumbling that seemed to come from the very ground itself. Jason pressed his palms against the cool earth, feeling for any crack or crevice, but the pit was a tomb, unyielding, oppressive. Fear clawed at his chest. Was this where he would join the whispers, forever bound to the tortured pleas of the lost? The thought sent him spiraling deeper into dread, and in that moment he felt something shift around him, an ominous stirring of the darkness. Instinct kicked in. He kicked and clawed at the earth, fighting against the weight of despair that threatened to anchor him. Suddenly, a powerful force surged beneath him. The ground vibrated violently, and Jason was thrown against the walls of the pit. He slammed into the soil, pain radiating through his body, but he could feel something else, a pulse, a heartbeat of the earth thrumming beneath him. And then, as if answering his desperation, a faint light flickered in the distance, a shimmering flicker that pierced the oppressive blackness. It danced just beyond his reach, teasing him, igniting a flicker of hope. "Jason, follow the light." The whisper was eerily familiar, echoing the voices from before. Their urgency clawed at him, pulling him toward that glimmering beacon, as if it were a lifeline. He scrambled against the dirt walls, aiming for that sliver of illumination. With every lunge, the walls seemed to shift and close in, but the light only grew brighter. Was it a trick? Would it lead him to his end, or his salvation? With one final push, Jason clawed his way up, fingertips scraping against jagged earth, and then he was out, sprawled on the surface, gasping for the cool night air that filled his lungs. He blinked against the intensity and gazed around. He had emerged at the edge of the field, but it felt different now. Everything seemed darker, more sinister. The laughter was gone, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed down on him like a fog. The cornstalks loomed higher, their shadows more pronounced, giving them the appearance of dark figures swirling close to him, waiting. Was he still being watched? As he slowly rose to his feet, he realized he was not alone. Figures straddled the perimeter of the clearing, their features obscured but unmistakably human. They were there, staring, their eyes sunken and vacant, mouths sewn shut with thin strands of what looked like corn husks. A chill shot through him. What had he stumbled upon? They were the ones who had come before him, their silence speaking volumes. Jason felt the weight of their despair, and for a breathless second he thought he could sense their pain reaching out to him. "Jason!" A voice emerged from the figures, breaking the stillness. "You should have joined us." Shivers danced down his spine as he took a step back, the weight of their gazes stifling, urging him to either join their ranks or flee. Yet the cornfield felt alive now, its stalks rustling as though eager for his next move. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Jason turned to run, adrenaline flooding through his veins. But the path he had taken earlier was now shrouded in thick fog, obscuring his way back. Panic bubbled inside him, a frantic race against the encroaching shadows and the figures that began to advance, one step after another. "Come to us, Jason," they called, their voices a haunting mix of despair and longing. He could feel the earth trembling beneath him again, a wild quake that reverberated through his bones. Was there no escape? Would he succumb to this cursed field and join them forever, sewn to the land that feasted on fear? And just as he reached the edge of the clearing, a familiar, sinister laughter echoed in the darkness behind him, twisting his heart in knots. "Where do you think you're going?" Fear paralyzed him. Was it too late to turn back? As he stood there, frozen, the cornstalks began to close in, and Jason was plunged into uncertainty once more. What awaited him? What other horrors lay beyond the veil of the night? Jason's heart pounded in his chest like a frantic drum as he stood paralyzed, the laughter echoing in his ears, strangling all thoughts of escape. The figures with sewn mouths advanced slowly, their eyes boring into him, a collective hunger that tugged at something deep inside him. Did they hope to consume him in their silence? "Run!" screamed a voice inside his head, but his limbs felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed by an overwhelming wave of despair. The oppressive fog thickened, wrapping around him like a noose, merging with the whispers of the figures who beckoned him closer. "Jason," they chorused, their voices rising like a chilling wind. "Don't you see? You belong here." With a fierce jolt of will, he broke free from the paralysis and dashed toward the edge of the field, the cool air stinging his skin as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The cornstalks rustled louder, sharp tendrils reaching out as if trying to pull him back into their twisted embrace. The laughter had shifted now, becoming a cacophony of sound that surrounded him, thrumming with an insatiable hunger. "Get away!" he shouted, desperation fueling his retreat as he stumbled into the maze of corn. He clawed through the vegetation, the stalks scratching at his arms, tugging at his sweater, holding him back like grasping fingers. The field seemed almost alive. Each step echoed with an ominous resonance, and as Jason kept running, he felt flashes of shadow out of the corner of his eye. Were they there behind him? Figures without faces watching him. Fear overwhelmed him, pushing him further into the dark. "Jason, come play." The disembodied whispers floated through the night, teasing him like a siren song. He turned sharply to look back and saw a figure, a woman with hair flowing like tendrils of smoke, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, beckoning him. "Join us!" she roared, and the fabric of the night seemed to rip under the force of her voice, distorting the sounds around him. Instinct kicked in again, and he didn't want to listen. He pressed forward with renewed terror, bursting through the stalks as they rustled violently, pulling and tugging at him like spectral hands. The sound grew louder, merging into a chaotic medley of whispers and laughter, drowning out his thoughts, drowning out his will. Just as he reached a more open area, he skidded to a stop. There in the center stood a towering figure, draped in shadows yet unmistakably human. Its mouth opened wider than natural, as though it were testing the boundaries of existence. A gaping hole that seemed to suck the light from the world around it. "Why do you resist?" it thundered, a voice like broken glass. "You cannot escape your fate." Fingers trembling, Jason realized he had nowhere left to run. The figures he had seen earlier were now flanking him, forming a circle that pulsed with hunger and desperation, their eyes now glinting with unnatural light. It was a trap, a nightmarish maze with no way out. The realization crashed over him like waves of cold water, and he felt his breath hitch. "Join us, Jason," they chorused again, voices woven into a sinister tapestry, "or suffer the eternal silence." In that moment he felt something behind him, a tangible presence swirling with dread. Turning swiftly, he found himself face to face with the ground where he had just clawed his way out, now a pool of darkness pulsating with malevolence. Jason's mind raced. Could he go back into the pit? Was it better than this? The figures moved ever closer, and the laughter rang in his ears like a death knell. Maybe the whispers didn't just want him to join, maybe they wanted him to become the next caller, to lure others into their doom. Would he betray his own to escape? As the darkness swirled around him, he felt the weight of their expectation hang in the cold air, urging him toward a choice. What would he do? What path would he choose? As shadows loomed closer and laughter erupted into frenzied chaos, Jason realized that the night was only beginning to reveal its true horror. And somewhere beyond the laughter, a new voice whispered, chillingly clear, "You can't outrun the truth." Jason's breath came in sharp, shallow gasps as he stood on the edge of the shadowy abyss. The whispers enveloped him like a tightening noose, their urgency rising, while the circular formation of figures loomed further, their eyes glowing with fervent anticipation. He felt the weight of their hunger pressing down on him, leaving no room for thought, no room for escape. "Join us!" they urged again, the chorus rising to a fever pitch. "Or suffer!" Time seemed to collapse. The world shrank to just him and this dreadful reality. He could feel the pulse of the earth beneath his feet, thrumming like a heartbeat, echoing the pulse of all that surrounded him. The voices intertwined, wrapping around him like a snake constricting its prey. As if sensing his fear, the towering figure in the center moved closer, its elongated limbs bending unnaturally. "You cannot defy what you are," it hissed, its voice smooth yet jagged like slithering glass. "You will understand soon." Fear clawed at Jason's insides. He was trapped, caught in the web of nightmares. Stepping backward, he felt the ground shift beneath him, the darkness bubbling and coagulating, its surface slick like oil. The urge to flee surged anew within him, driving him to the edge of madness, but he felt the cold fingers of despair gripping at his throat. He took another step back, and the swirling pit opened wider, a chasm of nothingness that seemed to beckon welcomingly. For a frenetic moment, he considered surrender. Could he simply jump in, let the dark haze consume him? "Fear not the silence." The voices broke through his thoughts, soothing yet twisted. It can be freedom. But he couldn't give in. Not like this. He was better than their game, wasn't he? Jason clenched his fists, forcing his trembling knees to steady. He needed to find a way out. "Darkness won't claim me," he shouted, though the conviction in his voice betrayed the tremor underneath. He turned away from the abyss, staring defiantly at the figures around him. They moved closer, their shapes undulating like the fog, silent, yet filled with tension. "Join us, or fight!" Their voices were ambrosia mixed with poison, each syllable pulling him closer to their web. "You cannot escape what you truly are." The ground surged again, and he staggered against the pressure, panting. A rush of adrenaline coursed through him, igniting a spark of rebellion. This wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who might stumble into this cursed field. Would he let them fall into the same trap? "I won't let you take me," he shouted, rage stealing his resolve. He gathered every ounce of his strength and sprinted forward, bursting through the figures as their laughter transformed into a cacophony of surprise. The sensation of cold hands reaching for him was almost stifling, yet he thrust through, determination propelling him forward. The path twisted as he ran, each second stretched into eternity. The outlines of the figures blurred in his periphery, their whispers morphing into angry shouts, but he didn't look back. His heart thundered in his chest. He could see a glimpse of moonlight filter through a break in the cornfield ahead. If he could just reach it, maybe he could escape. Hope flickered in the suffocating darkness. Suddenly, a blast of icy wind tore through the field, and the laughter morphed into a roar, shaking the very ground beneath him. Jason barreled forward, fueled by fear, but the presence of shadows surged behind him, relentless and insatiable. As he neared freedom, he could almost taste the spark of life beyond the suffocating fog. Then a deafening silence fell, and he stumbled, nearly losing his footing. "What's happening?" he gasped as the wind died instantly. A sense of dread pooled in his stomach. From the depths of the silence, the towering figure's voice unfurled like a dark banner, sinister and chilling. "You will learn, Jason. You cannot run from who you are." As darkness surrounded him once more, he felt a cold hand graze his shoulder, and terror screamed through him. In that moment he realized the truth. The night had only just begun to reveal its horrors, and he was still very much a part of it. And somewhere in the shadows, a low, mocking laughter echoed. "Don't you want to know what it feels like to truly belong?" The world around Jason fragmented into a startling silence, the laughter of the shadows echoing in his mind. It didn't feel like freedom. It was a trap. Panic surged through him, feeding the desperate need to escape. He didn't dare turn back. His heart raced like a runaway train. Something dark lurked behind him, weaving through the corn, waiting for its moment to strike. Each step he took was like stepping into quicksand. He felt an overwhelming sense of being pulled back, as if the very ground wished to consume him. "Run!" a voice echoed in his mind, an instinctive plea buried beneath the layers of dread. The moonlight glinted off the corn husks ahead, like ghostly teeth ready to snap shut. Jason sprinted wildly, veering through the rows of corn. The stalks loomed over him, drawing closer, the shadows stretching, seeking him out like hunting wolves. Breathing through clenched teeth, he pushed forward, driven by sheer panic. Then he heard it. The whispers again, soft at first, slithering through the air like mist. "Join us." It was seductive, almost inviting. Every word dripped with a poisonous sweetness that called to the chaos in his heart. "No," he yelled into the void. "I won't." His resolve felt weak, like a thread ready to snap. The laughter returned, louder this time, wrapping around him like a cold embrace. It morphed into a cacophony of voices, layered and twisted, echoing from every direction. "You think you're safe. You cannot escape." Jason's feet moved faster, but he could feel the vibrant energy of the field siphoning his strength. Pain prickled at his ankles. He glanced down to see the corn wraps curling like fingers, pulling at his shoes. With every stride they tugged harder, an attempt to trap him, pull him back into the depths of despair. He kicked at the stalks, desperate to break free. Stumbling, he felt a sharpness cut into his leg. "What the?" Jason gasped. Blood oozed from the shallow wound, a reminder of his fragility. In that moment, one figure slipped through the corn and stopped in front of him, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. The surrounding figures seemed to pulsate, drawing together as if rallying for some unspeakable rite. "Did you forget?" it hissed, the voice honeyed yet venomous. "You belong to us." A surge of anger coursed through Jason. He had to fight. The memories of laughter, of friends, of life, flashed in his mind. Would he really give that up? With a primal yell, he charged at the shadow, swinging his hands wildly, channeling every ounce of resistance he could muster. The figure laughed again, but this time it was different, a chilling sound that sent chills down his spine. "You think you're special? Few can resist the calling, but you will join soon enough." With terrifying swiftness, it lunged for him, its hands glowing with an unnatural light. Jason ducked just in time, flinging himself into the next row, heart pounding, but he could feel the energy growing around him. The whispers rose again, louder and more frenzied, pressing into his skull, suffocating him. And then silence. The air turned thick, pressing against him. He stood frozen, trying to catch his breath, every sound amplified in the quiet. Gradually he turned to see nothing. The figures were gone. "Is this it?" he breathed, glancing around. The corn swayed as if beckoning him back, the shadows retreating for now. But unease settled in as a shadow moved beyond the cornstalks again, a flicker of that lingering darkness. "It's not over." The whisper was softer now, sinister in its promise. "You cannot escape the truth." With no clear path ahead and desperation filling his chest, Jason knew this wasn't the end, not even close. He scanned the night, heart racing. What truth? Nothing answered, only more laughter echoed, deep and rumbling, wrapping him in fear once more. And from the shadowed corners of the field the voices whispered, "Prepare yourself, we will be back." Jason stumbled backward, his back brushing against the rough ears of corn that encased him. The husks rustled in response, a sinister symphony conducting his dread. The shadows shifted once more, weaving through the plants, becoming tangible, as if each cornstalk were a leering face. He could still hear their laughter, echoing, reverberating off the walls of his mind. "Prepare yourself. We will be back." It clawed at him, filling him with a quivering fear that made his legs weak. What did they mean? What was this truth they spoke of? Shaking off the cold sweat that coated his brow, Jason gathered his will. He had to move. He had to find a way out. Breathing deeply, he took off again, this time more cautious, forcing his mind to focus. Each footfall was a thunderclap in the silence, while shadows lurked just outside his vision, mocking his every attempt to escape. The whispers spilled over him again, now woven with urgency. "You're running from the inevitable," they hissed, slithering through the air like venomous snakes, coiling tighter around his sanity. "You can't outrun your fate. You belong with us." He barreled through the fields, weaving between the stalks. The moonlight no longer felt like a bright ally. It had shifted into a grotesque spectator, illuminating his fear for the horror that it truly was. Each step began to feel heavier, the ground more tenacious. Despair threatened to drag him down into its depths. A flicker in the darkness caught his attention. He halted, heart hammering against his ribs. A light. Was it hope? Dread twisted in his gut as he spun toward it. The light pulsed gently, almost rhythmically, as if inviting him in. "Is someone there?" he called out, his voice cracked and shaky. The echoes returned his question, mocking him further. A shuffling sound caught his ear, a rustle that sent sharp jolts of panic through him. He turned ever so slowly. The shadows grew thicker, pressing in, holding their breath as he waited for something more to emerge. Out of the fog of darkness, another figure materialized, stepping forward with a grace that defied the fractured reality around Jason. The figure seemed draped in wisps of night, a silhouette of haunting beauty and terror. In its hand, it held a glowing orb that flickered like a dying star, illuminating its features. "Come closer," it whispered, voice sweet as poison. Jason felt the pull, his body betraying him. He edged forward, heart racing in sync with the pulsing light. The brightness felt like a beacon, but as he approached, a chill spread through him, warning him of the trap. "No!" he shouted, pulling back desperately, fighting against an invisible force that sought to draw him in. The figure's smile widened, fangs glinting in the soft glow. "You cannot resist. We were waiting for you. You will join us, Jason. Don't you understand?" "Join you?" he echoed, disbelief thick in his throat. "No, you won't take me." With renewed fervor, he turned and sprinted away from the luminescent figure, the whispers erupting into a frenzy, echoing their hunger and want. The voices bled into one another, forming an agonizing melody that clawed at his mind. "Join us! Join us!" But as minutes turned into an eternity, the laughing figures returned, soaring through the air as dark clouds. They twisted and twirled, weaving towards him, blocking the path ahead. When Jason glanced back towards where he'd come from, he realized the field's life had shifted, now suffocating, hungry. "Jason!" The voices seemed to dance through the air as he stumbled, fear snaking down his spine. "You'll never escape. Not in this life." He turned to flee, but the world swirled in chaos around him, and with each agonizing moment he felt chains slowly tighten around him, pulling him into the shadows that beckoned. The finality of their words rang true, and just as dread wrapped its claws around his throat, he stumbled through an opening in the corn, out into an even darker void beyond. Was this freedom, or merely a new nightmare waiting to unfold? In the depths of that silenced void, the whispers rose again, chaotic and sinister. "You think you've escaped. Welcome to the next chapter." Jason emerged from the suffocating embrace of the cornfield, gasping for air, wild panic coursing through his veins. The darkness enveloped him like a thick blanket, blinding and oppressive. His heart raced, pounding relentlessly in his chest, a frantic drum urging him to move, to survive. But where was he? As his eyes adjusted to the pitch-black surroundings, he could hear it, a low, unsettling hum echoing in the silence. Was that the wind, or something other than nature? The sound tingled along his spine, raking his nerves raw. He stepped forward cautiously, the ground crumbling slightly beneath him. "Jason!" the whispers called again, and this time they felt closer, almost breathing down his neck. "Shut up!" he screamed into the abyss, his voice raw as fear twisted his gut. It hung there, unyielding, a reminder that he was never truly alone. A faint rustle from his right caught his attention. He pivoted, breath hitching, just in time to see a shape dart behind an old gnarled tree. His heart sank deeper. What was that? "Is anyone there?" he called out, though he grasped the futility of the question. Laughter, cruel and mocking, floated back to him, wrapping around his resolve like a tight coil. He pressed onward, each step a battle against the dread pulling at his heels. The hum grew louder, almost melodic, echoing off unseen walls, a siren's call that twisted his intuition. At the edge of a chilling clearing, the air turned colder, making him shiver. Panic surged, and he forced himself to stay calm. He needed to think. Could he find shelter? "Join us!" The whisper rippled around him, flowing from the shadows like a sickening breeze. It felt sticky, wrapping around his limbs, dragging him back. Fighting against it, Jason scanned his surroundings, searching for a way out. Then he saw it, a low stone structure barely visible in the darkness, its crumbling walls almost blending into the ground. Hope ignited within him. He raced for it, his feet pounding against the earth, pulse thrumming in his ears. "Jason!" The whispers wailed, desperation mingling with hunger. "Where do you think you're going? You belong with us." He ducked into the structure just as it exploded into a cacophony of laughter, the tormentors circling above like vultures. Inside, the air was thick, suffocating, pressing against his chest. Old, rotting wooden beams cracked underfoot, and a strange, sweet odor filled his senses. His eyes darted around. It felt like a tomb. It felt alive. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision. "Take him!" The voices hissed. He spun toward the corner where he sensed movement and met a pair of eyes shimmering in the darkness, glowing and hungry. The figure that approached was draped in black, an embodiment of his worst fears, with a mouth twisted into a rictus grin. "No, stay away from me!" he cried out, adrenaline surging through him, propelling his movements. Ignoring the instinct to freeze, he charged toward the exit, but as he stumbled, the laughter erupted into a deafening roar, reverberating off the stone walls, drowning out his cries. With a surge of desperation, he wrenched open the door, screaming into the night beyond. And just when he thought freedom was within his grasp, icy hands gripped his arms, pulling him back with a force that crushed all hope. "Join us!" Caught in the grip of the shadows, Jason realized what was waiting for him was far more terrifying than the cornfield. And in that moment, the walls echoed their final chant. "You thought you could escape, but the forest is hungry for you." The shadows closed in, and as he was swallowed by darkness, an unsettling question lingered in his mind. Could he ever truly awaken from this nightmare? Jason stood in the heart of darkness, panic gripping him like a vice. The oppressive silence weighed heavily, and whispers danced around him like vultures circling their prey. The stench of decay mingled with fear, and the shadows seemed alive, lurking just beyond sight, waiting for him to make a move, a decision that would seal his fate. "Jason, you belong here." The voices coiled around him, their tone persuasive yet sinister, wrapping him in a cocoon of dread. He could feel their energy, a pulsating wave that gripped at his very core, threatening to pull him deeper into despair. "No!" he shouted, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "I won't be part of this!" Each syllable felt like an act of rebellion, sending tremors through the dark. His heart thudded, each beat a desperate plea for survival. He took a cautious step back, and a shadow darted forward, its form distorted and grotesque, illuminated by the distant light he had glimpsed earlier. "You think you can fight this?" it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. "You are one of us now." Rage ignited within Jason. He had spent too long being afraid of the whispers, the darkness, the figures that haunted him throughout this nightmare. Now, standing against the creeping shadows, he felt a flicker of defiance spark in his heart. He bolted toward the door again, the place that had felt like a tomb, suddenly transformed into a battleground. Gripping the handle, he grunted with effort, yanking it open to reveal the enveloping darkness beyond. With every ounce of strength, he pushed his way through the threshold, only to stumble as icy hands reached for him, clawing at his back like nails digging into flesh. "No, you can't have me!" Jason shouted, his fear morphing into sheer determination. He felt more alive in that moment than perhaps he ever had, fueled by rage, by the need to escape, to break the chains binding him to this nightmare. He brushed off the clamoring shadows, each touch sending shocks of fear through him, yet he fought onward, shoving through the brazen hands that sought to claim him. The landscape transformed as he erupted into the clearing, where moonlight bathed the earth in a ghostly glow. A sudden gust of wind swept through, the darkness swirling, fading like fog chased off by the dawn. The whispers turned into howls, an anguished cry as they receded into the distance, their grasps slipping away, and Jason stood breathless at the edge. In that moment, he felt the pull of something deeper than the cornfield, a power beyond the whispers. He aimed to harness it, focusing on the radiant glow ahead, and pushed himself toward the truth that had always been rooted in him. "I won't fear you," he declared, folding his hands in front of him, framing the horizon before him. "I choose to be free." As Jason stepped forward, light surged around him, blasting away the lingering shadows. Each stride grew more confident, the path illuminating beneath the weight of his conviction. Suddenly, he felt the remnants of the night, the voices of the lost children, the agony of those who had come before him, all the pain that had wrapped around him, unfurl like a dying flower in light. With every ounce of determination he ran, bursting through the cornfield that had once felt like a prison. He dashed past the narrow lanes of stalks that reached out to ensnare him, no longer mere whispers of dread, but paths back to freedom, each step dissolving their haunting call. And then, like an explosion of warmth, Jason laughed. It was a clear, bright sound, shattering the lingering echoes of despair. Finally, he could hear the reality that had always existed outside the dark. As he emerged from the maze of corn into the open night, the moonlit field stretched endlessly ahead. The profound emptiness was filled with stars, a canvas of hope. Turning back, he watched as the darkness dissipated, shadows retreating, the figures fumbling among themselves, their anguished cries fading like distant thunder. "Run, Jason!" he called back, a sense of urgency overwhelming him. "Don't look back. Don't let it take you." He sprinted toward the horizon, into a world of possibility, his heart pounding. But with every breath, the weight of fear lifted. He had escaped their grasp, but more importantly, he had discovered his power. The echoes faded behind him, and Jason knew he had conquered the darkness, one heart at a time. Life awaited, bright and welcoming, beyond the veil of the cornfield. He was free now and forever. And as the night embraced him, he carried with him the stories of the lost, not as a burden, but as a vow to remember, to fight against the shadows, and to never go quietly into the darkness again. You need to subscribe now for more thrilling tales that grip your heart. Don't miss out. Hit that bell and select all notifications to stay updated with exclusive content. Smash the like button now to give your support and feed the algorithm for more stories like this. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about Jason's escape. How did he break free from his haunting? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this heart-stopping conclusion. Your support matters now more than ever.